Welcome to Political Speaking, the podcast where we unpack social political issues that matter to Singaporeans one conversation at a time. Today, we dive into the recent conviction of Workers' Party chief and leader of the opposition, Mr. Pritam Singh, on 17 February 2025. Mr. Singh was found guilty on 2 counts of lying to the Committee of Privileges and was fined a total of $14,000, $7,000 for each charge. The prosecution had sought the maximum fine for each charge, while Mr. Singh's legal team had pushed for a lower fine of $4,000 per charge. This case stemmed from the controversy involving former Workers' Party Member of Parliament, Raeesah Khan, who admitted to lying in Parliament back in August 2021. The trial opened on 7 October 2024 and unfolded over 13 days before the court delivered its verdict on this Monday. The court found Mr. Singh guilty based on Ms. Khan's testimony along with two others and ruled that Mr. Singh misrepresented his handling of the issue within his party. And this makes him the first sitting opposition MP in nearly 40 years to be convicted of a criminal offence. Despite this, Mr. Singh has maintained his innocence. He has confirmed publicly that he will file appeal against the verdict and intends to contest in the next general election, which must be held this year. Now, as the election department clarified, his fines do not disqualify him from running. And Mr. Singh has also highlighted in a clarification statement following the verdict that certain messages related to the case were deleted before the COP hearings. Now, beyond all this legal verdict, the issue of the legal verdict, this case has sparked public discussion on various topics, even prompting the Attorney General's chambers to issue a warning about the possible contempt of court offences. So, with the Workers' Party facing multiple legal battles and controversies over the years, from the concluded AHTC lawsuit to this case, some have questioned whether or not this reflects the broader challenges faced by opposition parties in Singapore. And now, given that Mr. Singh is still eligible to run, how this verdict would influence voters' sentiments for the Workers' Party in the upcoming general election. And just to avoid any doubt, this discussion does not question the verdict or judicial process, but instead focus on public reaction and political implications. So, as you know, I'm Terry Shi, and I'm joined today by our regular panelist, Dr. Thum Tjin, Managing Director of New Narrative, and visiting researcher at Kyoto University. And we are also joined by Ishak Rajoo J, an F&B business owner and sports coach who regards himself as the voice of the people. So, to start, let's hear your thoughts on the verdict and what transpired over the past months, if not years, on the ongoing saga. So, PJ, what's your initial reaction to this verdict, and what do you see as the most immediate political implication?
I mean, well, Terry, the PAP have lied to us so many times over the years, right? And we know for a fact that they've lied to us. We know Lee Hsien Loong lied to us about Operation Spectrum. We know Charles Chong lied to us about the mismanagement of funds for Punggol East. And nothing has ever happened to any of them. And, they didn't lie in Parliament where they're protected by privilege. They lied on TV. They lied at the elections. Right now, if you say that, okay, well, this is the cut and thrust of politics or whatever, then you also have to then apply that same standard to everyone, right? It's really, really unfair to hold opposition politicians to a higher standard, and it really opens up the whole system to accusations of hypocrisy and unfairness. So, I think the immediate thing though is that I don't think this is going to affect anything because, as I think Ian Chong pointed out, this is just going to further solidify opinions. right? If you think the PAP are unfair and if you think they're fixing the system, influencing it, if you think that laws are written to advantage the PAP, right, that the whole COP was set up to advantage the PAP, if you see Pritam as underdog, downtrodden, then this result is just going to confirm that opinion. On the other hand, if you see the Workers' Party and Pritam as impeding the good work of Singapore, of the PAP, getting in the way, opposing for what's the expression? Opposing for opposition's sake, etc. If you're pro PAP, this is also just going to confirm your opinion. So I don't really think that this is going to change anything. And I think it's just going to solidify opinions, like Ian suggested. And I think this whole thing was a waste of time, really, because the trial, right, called into question so many things. As you mentioned, the deletion of messages, it was found that Raeesah and I think Pei Ying were untruthful to the COP, and yet their testimony was accepted. Again, I'm not a legal expert, right? And to be clear, as the Attorney General Chambers has warned, I'm not like casting any aspersions on the court or saying it's unfair or anything like that. This whole thing just seems so politicized and ridiculous. And for what? And as I said at the beginning, the PAP has lied to us so many times on so many things and not been punished. That I think it's all unfair and crazy.
Yeah. So, Jay, how about you chime in with your thoughts from a ordinary citizen point of view?
From the people's perspective, the ordinary citizens, right? So you see, first of all, we have to understand what's the intent and the purpose of this whole thing. Raeesah, because for us, Raeesah was the guilty party, right? And for us, Pritam was just an innocent bystander pulled in because he's the leader of the party. And so we asked, why go after Pritam? Uphold justice or to discredit Pritam or tarnish Workers' Party name? Three birds with one stone. So, why did they do it? Because, you see, if you look at what happened in Parliament, right, this is what kind of pisses us off. Because Raeesah did whatever she did, she lied in Parliament. And so the men in white, the ministers from PAP looked at these two characters and said, I think we believe Raeesah. When she had lied in Parliament, and Pritam is a respected member of public service, and he's elected minister. And so, and until to that point, right, Shanmugam and company were trying very hard to prove that she is a liar, a blatant liar. And then once they got that done, when they looked at the testimony of the two people, they said, oh no, we believe Raeesah. So they kind of contort the truth according to what they want or when they want. This is my opinion. And so it was brought up to COP. And then when we compare that to the other instance, like even PJ was talking about, there are other instances where the ministers from PAP had made mistakes, but nothing was called. And the biggest one was when Lee Hsien Loong did not inform the public of Tan Chuan Jin's affair, right? So, and for 3 years, it didn't happen, and then he kind of like trying to sort it out. For 3 years, he said he was playing counselor, but that's unfair to us. And you remember this, during this whole saga with Raeesah, who was the Speaker of the House? Who was leading the whole thing? It was Tan Chuan Jin, a
Who was
guy
leading the
who's
COP? Who was leading the
and
COP?
a chairperson of COP, right?
Yes.
He was a chairperson of COP. So they already know, and he's not supposed to be in that position to hold office. And then there he is leading the COP and finding who's right and who's wrong when he's not supposed to be in there in the first place. So when as citizens, when we look at all this, we just feel that it's not really working for us. What they are doing is not really right. Yes, the court has proven him guilty. We go with that. We have to respect the law of the land, but the cause that led up to him. So why wasn't our ex-prime minister called in for questioning for the fact that he didn't inform us about this whole affair? So this is how we feel, and it kind of pisses us off, actually.
And let's not forget, Cheng Liu Hui, the affair partner, Tan Chuan Jin's affair partner, was appointed to committees, at least one committee under the chairmanship right, of Tan Chuan Jin. It's a blatant conflict of interest that
Yes.
then PAP knew about. That is an offense. That should have been investigated by a committee of privileges.
And so
But then, yeah,
so people are saying, but he didn't lie under oath. But the fact is, this is the highest land of the office that is supposed to uphold integrity. And you should be a role model for the whole of Singapore, for
mm,
everybody, from kids to adults or even businesses or corporate. And then there you are trying to say that, oh, because he wasn't under oath. No, you must have integrity as a human being. As a prime minister, you do not need to have the scriptures in your hand and then swear by it. Only then you would have honesty and integrity. No, we're not buying that bullshit anymore.
and the flip side, right? He said, "Oh, let us have compassion for these two individuals." Well, okay, you want to have compassion. What about compassion for Raisha, who is a survivor of sexual assault and who lied precisely to avoid outing herself and outing this other lady who also survived sexual assault, right?
Yeah,
That was the whole point of the lie. The lie wasn't like to benefit herself or make money. It was to protect, the dignity, right? Her
yeah,
dignity as a survivor and her acquaintance, her friends' dignity as a survivor. So why not have compassion there? But
yeah.
no, we got to paint them as evil liars, and the double standard is really sickening.
On this point, we must be reminded that the judge did not believe Pritam's explanation for not pursuing the matter or disclosing it earlier. In fact, Pritam Singh had stated that he did not immediately expose Raeesah Khan or compel her to step forward because he wanted to give her time to discuss and review the matter with her family members first, given the sensitivity of the matter. This delay in bringing the issue to public attention has sparked discussion among many netizens, many who believe that he was simply too lenient with his party members, and some argue that he was not being ruthless enough to pursue the truth and then expose an MP who has essentially confessed to lying. But instead, Mr. Singh, Pritam exercised caution due to the sensitivity of Marisa's claim that she was a victim of sexual assault.
Terry, I mean, as someone who runs an organization, and Jay as a business person, maybe you've had these challenges too, right? These issues sometimes arise within your organization where there are accusations, and New Narrative has dealt with similar accusations against team members in the past, right? In the pre-pandemic years, and dealing with this requires a huge amount of sensitivity. You can't just go in, there's no clear cut rules, there's no easy way to resolve these questions, right? And you want to be sensitive, you want to avoid re traumatizing people, you want to be fair. And sometimes being fair means you have to take time, you have to investigate carefully. And I think this is part of the problem that we have as humanity, even not just our society. We think that maybe it's because of the media, like sexual assault cases, right? We think, oh, it's very clear cut, it's easy, it's fast, right? You have hard and fast rules, always believe the survivor or whatever. But it's simply impossible. And resolving these things takes time, and you need to investigate and you need to talk to people, and people need to come forward and be willing to talk, right? And people are enmeshed in a whole web of relationships, personal, professional, and you have to navigate all of that, and how much more so for a political party, right? For a public figure. So these are all things that I think need to be considered. And when you look at how Pritam handled it, again, there is no right or wrong or best or ideal or perfect way. There's no perfect way of handling it, right? You just gotta be sensitive and careful and compassionate. And that is too easily interpreted as being lax or, too lackadaisical, too soft, too forgiving, right? But we are not in that situation. These are very difficult situations. And I think we need to think And this comes back to why racial. Like, we need to think about how we as a society deal with these very sensitive issues, right?
Yeah.
And I think Aware has pointed out sexual assault is underreported and it's not dealt well with in Singapore at all. Partly because of our laws, partly because of how we approach the issue, partly because I think we as a society are also have unreasonable expectations about how to deal with it, as if it's some other very clear cut, white collar financial crime where you look at the numbers, or as if it's like CSI or whatever, where it's like, oh, it's wrapped up in 90 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean the way they actually handle it, I was cringing when I was watching Parliament and the way they were questioning Raeesah Khan. So the moment you see this is you must have some moral character. The moment a woman tells you, no matter where it is, whether it's a police station or having a personal chat in a coffee shop, and this is in Parliament, the whole nation is watching. And so the moment when she says it was a sexual assault case and a woman is talking about this, they should have actually moved it out and said, let's have a private discussion on this because it's a very sensitive issue. And they are also advocating women to speak up about it. So how are women watching it, young girls watching such, a hardcore lawyer going after Raeesah Khan, who spoke about a sexual assault issue, like a pit bull? You think you are advocating women to speak up? No, because even as a guy, I felt very uncomfortable with it. They should have taken it. Yes, it was she lied in Parliament, but that does not matter. We are a society who have a bit of compassion, so they should have taken it offline, done an investigation, have a chat about it, and come out and put a statement. Pritam could have put it out a statement, so could have a PAP minister, and Raeesah could have put out a statement, rather than just flaunting everything there and then going through. We always talk about rape victims being questioned in the court, and it's quite a difficult process. And also for family members, imagine her father and mother, parents watching it. It's very uncomfortable for everybody. So they could have handled it well. On a side note, I mean, we are a society of compassion, and we need to advocate it. And you have the highest office, the parliament. It should be the people who set the path to it, actually.
And the travesty of this entire situation is that they simply kept harping on the fact that Raeesah lied about accompanying this imaginary woman to the police station. And yet, until today, right, there has not been any real discussion about the issue of sexual assault victims, which was the point Raeesah was trying to highlight with her lie in Parliament. As PJ rightfully pointed out, her statement was not made for financial gain or to seek sympathy, but to make a broader point, a point that is reflected in how this matter transpired. It simply just show people are not sensitive to how sexual assault victims feel and hesitate in coming forward with their stories. If anything, this entire incident had made things worse for victims of sexual assault. And there are people who simply lack empathy and then using this case as an example to argue why sexual assault victims' testimonies or their stories should not be believed. And you also feel a lot of baseless claims of the wider community, civil society, about them being woke. Ultimately, right, Singapore did not benefit from how the ruling party carried out this whole exercise.
It was a waste of time, honestly, like what we just said. It honestly was a waste of all our time. They were trying to do something that they thought they could achieve. The Democrats did it with Trump in US. And at the end of the day, he won a lot of sympathy votes, and this doesn't change jack shit, honestly. It does not at all. If not, it has actually made the opposition party supporters more gung-ho and say, we're going to go and vote for Pritam and company, and even people who are the what do you call swing voters, people are sitting on the fence. They saw this so ridiculous, and they are also thinking of what is going on. And it's like, one side they make mistakes and they are not called up for it, and on this side you say the wrong thing. I mean, I've been profmat and had a defamation suit against me as well for just asking why is your friend the AGC, and so things have changed now. You ask us to shut up, but we are not going to shut up. And so they have to understand this doesn't change anything. And so, if not more, it is actually guaranteed Workers' Party a definite seat in Parliament, I think.
Can I just also point out that all of this, Singapore, unfortunately, I think we remain a rather misogynistic society. We don't take women seriously, and there is a lack of female leadership at the top of Singapore. I don't think having a female president changed anything. And if you look at our cabinet, very few women, and also, I mean, I'm conscious the three of us are men talking about this issue,
Yeah.
right? There are great women who work on this issue that actually maybe we should have invited them to talk about it. But the fact is, I think as a society, we also need to consider that we, remain a very hierarchical and male dominated society. But the big part of the problem is from the top, that we have leadership which is very male dominated and very misogynistic. And there's a lot of deeper fundamental issues there which need to be considered.
Now, how do you think the media have covered the case so far? Do you think that their coverage has been fair, or do you think that they are leaning towards certain angle, or they are simply echoing what the PAP has been pushing for?
Well, I'm not in Singapore, so I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if I can answer that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the media has covered it. I would like to add on. You see, what we need is we need journalists, but we have reporters. Maybe it's our education system. You digest and you regurgitate, right? And so that's what we have. And so so both international and local media have covered this. But it's quite disappointing, lah. Because what we need is investigative journalism, and we don't have that. I give you an example just to cite an example. Kenneth brought up the ride out issue. He was the first guy who pointed it out, and then but nobody. I expected it, but nobody went to interview him. And it was his side of the story never came out. Nobody found out how he found out, or he had to put out his own facts. So that's what I'm saying. So we need more hardcore journalism. I mean, if you are going to talk about a thriving democracy, and if you want to talk about the forward Singapore exercise, that people need more freedom and be able to speak and be creative and be modern in thinking, and then you have journalists who are just regurgitating what's out there, lah. I mean, I don't have to read the newspaper. I look at social media and I get my information. So what's the point of having a media and they don't report hard facts? This is what I feel. So it was covered. No disrespect, it was covered. Don't come after me. But I just feel it was not enough, lah. Yeah.
Well, on that point, we also have to acknowledge the role of Administration of Justice Protection Act, which significantly limits the reporting of ongoing cases. It can be very risky as well. For example, the AGC can decide a statement constitute contempt of court and then proceed to charge you for it. And frankly, the threshold for contempt is really quite low. So for journalists, right, even if they happen to be well aware of any ongoing any wrongdoing or any injustice, reporting on such case can be very challenging. For example, the Party Liani case, which I think everyone is well aware, I covered from the very beginning. I followed the case from the very beginning to the point of her acquittal. So there are many occasions in which I hesitated to report certain details. Even for me, I chose not to publish because I know that my reporting could have been perceived as implying bias on the part of the judge or the judicial process. And this makes it very, very hard for the reporters to bring certain cases to the public's attention. And Pritam Singh's case is particularly unique in this regard. Have you ever seen a case in Singapore which is covered in the manner in which it was? Have you seen a case in which they updates are reported in lifetime as the proceedings were ongoing. If you were to look back in history in Singapore, I believe this is unprecedented.
I mean, we saw something similar with the NKF. Remember that whole corruption case?
Yeah.
When the Straits Times does not have the political pressure put on it, right? When it's unleashed, it actually knows what to do. When the mainstream media, you know, is allowed to do its job, it actually knows what to do. But most of the time, it's not.
But you see, Terry, you just said it because now it's the era of social media. If they don't keep pace with us, imagine a person like me. You said your TOC was in court. And imagine if a person like me goes in and then I come out every 10 minutes and give information on what's happening. I don't have to put in my own opinions. I just have to, you know, copy paste what is said and then I put it out. And so they don't want to lose out on them. They need to put in the proper narratives that they feel that we might put out falsehood or whatever. So to curb that, they have to start reporting. And this is the first of its kind, yes, but it's not going to stop here. Every time there's going to be a huge case, they're going to have media out there. Let's look at another example. Iris Ko, she and her husband Ghazi, right? They had an issue with Kelvin, and I don't want to go too deep into it. But when they came to the house, for seizure and sale or whatever, they had an army of reporters behind them, which I thought was just shocking. I mean, it's supposed to be a private issue, right? But then they allowed cameras in, so they don't want anybody to put out any other narrative which could be deemed as not true, right? So they make sure the media is there to report the to say the right things. So it's going to happen from now. It's going to happen for sure.
It seems that Pritam's party, the Workers' Party, has capitalized on this and turning it in around to their advantage, especially with his response to a journalist's question. When asked if he would step down following the guilty verdict, Pritam responded, "Mm, I think the need of the hour is for me to step up, not step down." The party quickly capitalized on this catchy phrase, even turning the hashtag StepUp into a campaign slogan for the party and Pritam. So, what's your thought of this being turned into a publicity campaign?
I'll let you go first, Vijay. You're the more popular guy.
What? No, no. You're the guy on TikTok. You're the voice of the people. I don't know. I mean, he's clearly a skilled politician. He didn't become leader of the opposition, and the Workers' Fight didn't become the biggest opposition party in parliament by chance. So I guess yeah, I mean, they know what they're doing.
Or
I'm
maybe
not a politician.
I
Are you asking about the challenges they will face or how they handle it?
Well, I say this, what's your thought on how they managed to handle the verdict? Because from my personal assessment, the way how they respond shows a much more mature and professional political movement, political strategy as compared to the PAP. You have to bear in mind that the PAP, as the ruling party, has 60-year-old political machinery behind it. Yet, in most cases, it struggles to put forward a coherent narrative or message to distance itself from the blame or to frame the situation in which it's in his favor. And instead, it relies on character assassination or pushing the blame to someone else rather than strategically turning the situation around, just like how Workers' Party has managed to do in this case. Workers' Party is not denying that the verdict is there, but rather acknowledging as a challenge that they face in Singapore and expressing their intent to contest it further. So for Singaporeans, I believe this is the kind of spirit that they will admire. A never dies attitude. They don't simply complain that PAP is being unfair, we're being bullied, and they don't dwell on how difficult things are. So instead of focusing on voicing their grievances, they choose to press on and take up the fight. So I believe, right, this is what would inspire a lot of Singaporeans, and it might even persuade fence sitters to see this kind of leadership as what they want for Singapore, rather than what the current leadership represent to them.
So I mean, like we spoke about this again. I have to speak about social media. Previously, they did not have any competition. Okay, they can take their time. They can plan their narratives very well. They can write a good script, and then they print it and send it out, and then we all read it, right? And or we hear it over the news. But now they can't afford to take their time, because the moment a person on social media hears a story, probably in 30 seconds he's got a story out already, you know. And so it's competition for them. So if for them, it's like they don't know how to control this beast called social media. They have no clue at all. They always thought the old way would work. It's like I teach in class, how students behave, or we behave back then. The teacher asked us, shut up, we shut up. Now, teacher asks, shut up, we say, you shut up. You explain to us why we have to shut up. So this is the state of mind right now. And so Workers' Party is more current in the way they think. Even if you were to look at the videos, right? If you look at the trend, right? It's very nice to watch the way, and they have ministers who are very articulate on camera. And this is something that PAP has not. Until today, we don't know who their candidates are, which is ridiculous. We've got 2, 3 months to go. I don't know in my own GRC, except for Shanmugam is my own MP. I don't know. I love this guy. I've got a picture of him right next to me at a bus stop. It's a huge poster. Every morning I use joystick. So, actually, when we moved in, we saw his poster on the lift, and then my wife told me, "Hey, your best friend is in this place." I said, "Well, lucky me." So, they have no clue. I have no clue who the candidates are going to be. They are so slow to react because they feel that they got to keep it a secret. But even in my case, people knew that I was going to run for election last year already, and I was willing to put it out, and I'm not afraid. And I do live shows. People can ask me questions because I got nothing to hide, right? And so this is what they have to learn. People can smell bullshit a mile away. So the old way of you just using your media to put out whatever you want is gone already. Like the recent event where PSP had an issue with PAP supporters, where there was a slapping incident or whatever. Back then we would only be able to read it from one scope. Right now we're watching what actually happened on video. Social media is out there. So, and the way Workers' Party had kind of spinned it very well. And I don't know whether Pritam had thought about this question, because it was very well said. He said, are you going to step down? Of course not. We're going to step up. Hashtag step up. And so that has become, it's something I would do. I was using hashtag stand up, but step up sounds better and it's more current, and it is very attractive for the younger voters. They want that. And so PAP need to get into the game or they're going to lose it. And so they are handling it very well. And I would just want to say, if PAP think it has thrown a challenge to Pritam and Workers' Party, I think they have woken up a sleeping dragon. Now,
They never learned from the lesson of Raeesah Khan back in for the Sengkang
yes,
GRC.
and even lessons from further back, I think they have not learned.
No. Raeesah, because Raeesah Khan, the other thing is her case led to them losing a GRC in Sengkang. Let's not forget that. Whether or not Raeesah posted on social media was right or wrong, the very act of going after her and accusing her of racism, while PAP MPs have made even worse remarks themselves, exposes a sense of hypocrisy that really pisses off a lot of voters. And yet, despite this failure, the loss of Sengkang GRC, they are still pushing forward with this same kind of mindset. And if we were to step back and to look at this objectively, we should be concerned, because this mindset would definitely be extended to be just politically battering. They would apply the same kind of approach to the economy, the defense, and social assistance policy, and many more. They'll believe what worked in the 70s or 80s, right, would work in today's modern economy and context. And that's what Singaporeans need to be worried about. That a group of 4G leaders, right, are stuck in the ways of the 80s, the 90s, right, thinking that those outdated methods of bullying still apply today.
Yeah, because some of the leaders have still got their brains stuck in the 1970s. It's a very colonial mindset, I think. I mean, if I can put it right. Yeah, you see, I find even the way they're putting out their their vision, right? It doesn't tally with them. You have Lawrence Wong, which I personally, honestly, I like him because I think he's trying to change and he's trying to put in, an idea of what Singapore should be. And it's very borrowed. And so he's not a person who using GDP as the measure of success for citizens. Whereas you have ministers like, again, I got to speak about my favorite minister, my own MP, Mr. Shanmugam, who's coming out with harder laws, make the law stricter, make it more painful when they get their punishment. This is not the way to go. If you want to grow democracy and if you want a forward thinking nation, then it cannot be run like a prison camp. You must open it up and let people fly a bit and then get feedback. You say you want to hear feedback, listen to social media, listen to what we are saying. You see, if I was their consultant, which I will never be, I will just say, listen, stop all this bullshit, stop the gerrymandering, just draw square boxes, everything looks fine, and come out openly and said, we have made some mistakes. They should have done it when Lawrence took over. We've made some mistakes, but here I am. Let me know what you guys want changes. Social policies need to come in, and then people will start trusting you. You already have your 60%. You just have to, maintain, and then you might even get people like me coming on board with you.
Lawrence could have never said we made some mistakes because the previous prime minister is right there sitting next to him, breathing down his neck, right? But that's what you said. If they want democracy, I don't think they want democracy. They want technocracy. One really essential characteristic of the PAP since Lee Kuan Yew is a belief that the smartest, best people should, they have the right and responsibility to rule and to lead.
and to have
And that's a huge problem. Yeah.
yeah.
So what the that's why we see all these Singapore conversations where people try and speak up, right? You have reach, you have all these different systems, but what reaches the ministers is very filtered. And then from the minister's perspective, democracy is when they have heard what you have to say. And then they'll consider everything in the fullness, the complete context of everything and make their decision. But that's not democracy.
Yeah.
Democracy is when you have genuine representatives of the people sitting around the table making decisions on behalf of the people and being accountable and transparent to them,
Yeah.
right? What we have is a technocratic elite, and that's the fundamental contradiction. They may say they want democracy, but the moment they actually, look at Lee Hsien Loong. He came into office also pledging to be more open, transparent, new era, different. And he, to his credit, he actually tried. He repealed laws. We used to need a permit for all indoor events, right? He removed that requirement, for example, made life easier. And then what you saw,
We have to attribute that to Dr. Chi's civil disobedience.
yeah, Dr. Chi definitely, because of him, right? But it was Lee Hsien Loong who repealed the.
Was it removed before Dr. Chi or after Dr. Chi?
After the Dr. Right, where you have speaker
It
corners
was,
and whatnot.
Okay.
yeah. Now my point is Lee Hsien Loong initially tried to be more open, then quickly realized because he was more open, he was getting more criticism, people were getting more active. And by 2009, right, we had new laws, the Public Order Act, which redefined a public assembly and procession as one person, right?
Right.
So he quickly clamped down. And I think the same thing, Lawrence Wong, he will try to be more open, particularly before the election, but he's going to get a lot of criticism because there's a lot of public anger. He's eventually going to clamp down and he's going to get Mr. Shanmugam to do it for him.
Yeah. I mean, they can't take criticism. This is the thing. I mean, if you had made a mistake and you go and tell your wife or your husband, look, I've made a mistake. What, you think they're going to straight away hug you and then buy you, roses and chocolate and give you a kiss? No. They're going to screw you up a bit. You're going to get that pressure. And then after that, things are going to calm down and then it's going to plateau off. And then when you do your real work on the ground and really help people out, it will start going up again. I mean, it's easily said, but because of the way they have been sheltered, and these are the kind of ministers I see on board. You don't get, they are all like scholars, very scholarly the way they do things, and so they are so sheltered from real life. And so when, like, you look at Marcus, the guy who was at Sengkang, he switches off his comment box and he talked about issues. How you got, and he says, I want to hear feedback from you. And then you put a earplug, you shut off your comment box. How does that work? Yeah, people will slam you. People slam me. And I left it open. Even when I got put my correction notice, I left my comment box on because I want to know what people say. So I know how to learn from that and counter that and to improve things. So this is what they need to do. They have to listen more and pay attention as well.
So to bring it back to Pritam's case, I think this is actually the main impact of the case, not so much in terms of the opposition, but in terms of the sort of supply side of democracy, right? What we're seeing through Mr. Shanmugam and all his laws, right, and through attacks on the opposition, like this one on Pritam, and through attacks on POFMAs, on all three of us have received POFMAs, is to constrain the willingness of people to speak up, to
Yeah.
step up, to take part in politics. That's the strategy that they're following. So we've talked a lot about social media and responding to that. But if people are not, they don't have the courage. If people are too scared to go on social media and speak up, too scared to volunteer for the TOC, right? Too scared to to exercise their right as citizens to speak up and give their political opinion, then the PAP can say, oh, but no problem, what? No one's speaking up. No one says there's a problem. Josephine Teo, right? No one has. what was her? What she said?
I have not come across one single migrant worker himself that has demanded an apology.
So there's one point I think I would like to address before we go for our conclusion. Many netizens have raised concerns, particularly during the trial last year, of how two other individuals who testified in court as prosecution witnesses admitted during the trial that they had lied to the Committee of Privileges or withheld information. Yet no legal action appears to have been taken against them. So I was and therefore, right, there are people who express like views that they ought to have been investigated for perjury. So some might even question, well, why was Pritam Singh prosecuted for the alleged lie while the others were not? Can I ask the panelists on what's your take on this situation, particularly on how it may be perceived by the general public?
Well, there's always this rush to say, hey, we should crack down, we should have harsher laws, we should have bigger fines, we should, I think these people are also victims. I have a lot of sympathy for them because I can only imagine, well, actually, I don't need to imagine. I've been through similar things, right?
Yeah.
But like the kind of pressure they must have been under, the fear they must have felt, the fear is real, and what they must have gone through, the kind of pressure put on them to conform, behave, and say the things that the government, the COP wants to hear. So I don't think they should be punished, just as I don't think this whole case should have been conducted. This whole thing is a farce, right? And punishing them, I think, just punishes victims.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about this. I think about the impossible. Imagine the impossible happens. Imagine opposition parties win the majority and they form a coalition. Who's going to be the prime minister? Pritam. Okay. So the going after the other 2 or 3 witness or 10 or 15 or 20 witness does not matter. They're not going to cause any problem with the coming elections. Who's going to be the bigger force? Pritam, right? So yeah, I just feel that, yeah, okay, justice has been served. Though they have made mistakes, because their mistakes, I said it the other day, same but different. So going after Pritam is better, and to tarnish his name, and they always thought this is going to help them. People are going to disengage themselves from Workers' Party and say, oh yeah, they are convicted felons and they lie, and then people are not going to be part of Workers' Party, or people are not going to support the opposition. But actually, they have become more stronger now, and this is what I hear. And so they got this whole thing wrong. It would have been better for me when I look back and say, how could PAP have done it better if they, number one, if they had actually settled this in Parliament, because it was their perception. Because you took a statement from a person who has lied compared to a person who has not, an elected member of parliament and leader of the opposition, and then you discredit him, and you were saying that Raeesah was lying all the way until that was proven already, and then you said, compared to the two of your statement, you have lied. And so you took a WhatsApp message and then you used it against Pritam, and that WhatsApp message was sent by Raeesah. So that's what gets us. And you completely did not believe him, and you thought by going after him it's going to help your cause. But I thought it would have been settled better if they had finished it in Parliament and given a warning, or even at the COP stage where they say, okay, these things have been found out, and because it's very iffy, right? It's not concrete proof that he said something. It was recorded, or there is a witness who said, yes, Pritam said such a thing, and said, you need to take it to your grave. But no, it's her word against him. She comes out of the meeting, she feels guilty, she wants sympathy. This is what I think personally. She wants some sympathy from her friends. So she said, oh, he told me to do it. So, because they don't want to be proven as the person who did the wrong thing, right? So it is what they believe, and they should have just ended it at COP and said, okay, we give you a warning, let's move on. So things would have been better. People would have said, hey, not bad, lah. At least they give chance a bit, and they moved on. But they didn't. They went after the jugular. They got what they want, but still nothing has changed, I think.
This is why we need a neutral speaker. Historically, Singapore's first Speaker of the House was not a politician, right? Eulis was neutral and he was very widely respected. In other countries, they alternate speakers between the leading parties, right? But the speaker does not have to be an MP at all.
Yeah.
The parliament has the right to appoint someone completely neutral as speaker. And
The COP,
a neutral speaker could have just said, okay, you lied, we give you a warning. Now let's focus on the important thing, which is this issue of sexual assault.
Yeah. And also the COP, I thought they should have had people maybe from the judiciary or somewhere else, and not use the ministers who's actually accused him of lying, and then to conduct an investigation, because the way Edwin Chong went, see, that's another thing that really is fresh in our minds. The way it was Edwin, right? Edwin went after Pritam, and the way he was talking, he was, it seemed to me he already had a narrative in his mind already, and he was trying to prove that right, rather than going after the facts and finding out the truth. This is how I felt it. And then the way he was, I felt Pritam was just bullied. He handled it well, but it just looked like they were trying to just paint a bad picture of Pritam, and so all this left a bad taste in our mouth, for us voters. And you being such a big party there for 60 years, if this is how you still want to conduct business, and if that's what you want to do, then I feel that this is not a democracy, man. There should have been a neutral party there, to conduct. Even both your trials, I went to look at it. It was ridiculous, honestly, for me. And so things got to change. Ministers can't be sitting on, in positions where they question people and all. I mean, Pofma, you decide he did something wrong, and then you are the one who sanctioned him. And I got Pofma, put up a correction notice, never even asked to come in for an interview. And I go for an interview, they ask me ridiculous questions that is not pertaining to the Pofma. So this is what I'm saying. You are the judge and you're the accuser, the judge, and the jury. It doesn't make sense anymore.
So, to wrap up, maybe we invite the panelists to share their thoughts with the election on the horizon. What is the key takeaway for voters when considering this case and its impact on Singapore's political landscape?
Yeah, see, I mean, I will try to make it as brief as possible. See, I was doing fitness videos, all the time for the last couple of years, and I only started talking about politics. It didn't mean to at all. I was waiting in the car one night, and I was watching, a video of Indrani Raja saying, when she was asked what is the cost of building an HDB house, and she said, "It's not important for you to know." She said that. And it came out from the minister's mouth. And I don't talk about politics, but I have watched politics. I've been following politics, of other countries. I've never heard a minister dismiss such an important question like that. And I thought that answer was so important. And so this has been the way they have been putting things up, because nobody has dared to question them. You see, politics is a beautiful thing, right? One of the best inventions besides the wheel and brownies with vanilla ice cream. So, but the way it is conducted, not only here, I don't only blame here, but these people follow whatever is happening globally, right? They are more geared towards party politics and their loyalty towards the party, rather than loyalty to the people who have voted them in, which should be the priority. And when any minister goes off tangent, you do not need an opposition leader or an opposition minister to step up and put things right. You must have a person in your own party be able to stand up and say, "Hey, no, listen, that was not right." So that's when the trust comes in. And this has not been happening at all. The moment one person puts out a narrative, everybody follows like a bunch of sheep. That's all. And they kind of add to the idiotic arguments. It just adds on, and it just looks stupid sometimes. It doesn't make sense to me when I watch Parliament. And so they have to change that. And so if you're gonna go after Pritam or even Raeesah, and the way you handle, Raeesah's issue, it just leaves a bitter taste in our mouth. It just shows that you are a big bully, the way you handle it from day one right up to now. Yes, now the judiciary made the decision. It's got nothing to do with with the ruling party. And then another thing is, some people even forgot about yesterday's case, because Voucher Wong gave out so many vouchers. People are, trying to count vouchers now. And look at the timing of how things are done. So yes, coincidence, the stars lined up for PAP, for the convenience. But I think they have to change. And we are also thinking, do you want a government that barks instruction at you, or you want a shepherd that, tends to the need of the flock? And we want the latter. And so this is how you nurture a modern democracy. We need to spread our wings, and we need to fly together. Everybody in Singapore, everyone, from the first to the last. And so if you're going to have ministers who run it again, like I said, like a prison camp, it's not going to work, and we are not seeing any different. You come out and talk about Forward SG, and then you have the AGC that says, don't talk about this issue. Yes, because he's making an appeal, but we should have the right to discuss some form have some form of discussion, and they don't even allow it. Actually, the AGC should not have the right to tell the citizens not to discuss it. They should tell the media, maybe, and say, don't write about it yet because he's making an appeal. But we are normal folks. We want to discuss things because we want to find out. So that should be allowed. And the Prime Minister should come forward and say, hey, uh, let's look at this. If you want to have an open debate, rather than putting out a POFMA, have an open debate. If I say something wrong, have an open debate with me, or ask me in for an interview and say why I said it. Don't ask me to put up a correction notice and then one day and say, okay, you need to come. It doesn't work that way. Things need to change. We have not seen enough changes, and so we have to make sure we put in enough people in parliament so they don't suka do whatever they want. And that is what is being done in parliament. Suka feel like it, they do it.
I think Jay's right. And, if I can take a broader view, the problem, one of the huge challenges our world faces is that over the past 40 years, the systems which we had thought would promote democracy, right? Liberal democratic institutions, capitalism, have all been co-opted by elites to perpetuate their rule. And people aren't stupid. We can see the rampant inequality. We can see that elections, right? You're given two choices, and in a lot of countries, those two choices are barely different from each other because they will just continue to uphold the neoliberal consensus, which enriches the wealthy at the expense of the working class. So we are reaching this point, right? And where the sort of global order is in crisis. And fortunately for Singapore, we're not in a crisis yet, but we have an opportunity to build a country, to preempt this, to build a country through making choices with our vote that could possibly sidestep this or make this, or at least, avoid the worst of it. But we have a government which is extremely elitist and increasingly not just ignoring the people, but misusing state resources like they have done, I think, with Pritam, to go after Pritam, to silence people, to scare people, rather than to genuinely listen and focus on what the real problems are. So when it comes back to the vote, we have a choice about what kind of Singapore we want. More of the same, or will you take a chance on a different and uncertain, but different, and I think one in which we curtail the excesses of government, right? We send a message to government: stop misusing your power to abuse us and attack us, and please start governing on our behalf. Because that's really what's in front of us. As I've said, the PAP are not going to lose the election, right? The election is unfree, unfair, it's virtually rigged. The only point of freedom you have is that point where you put the X. And so what you do with that X is going to send a message. And so it's vitally important you really consider, do you want to endorse what's been going on in Singapore, or do you want change? And change, I know, is scary, but can we afford to keep doing all of this nonsense, all of this still to happen? Can we afford for the government to keep silencing us and going after, the opposition, activists, anyone who disagrees? No, I don't think so.
So, to conclude, today's discussion has not been about whether or not the verdict was right or wrong. The judiciary and the judge has the authority to make that decision, and we fully acknowledge and respect that. What we have discussed today and what our panelists have reflected on is the broader public perception of how this case unfolded and what it means for Singapore's political landscape. We have seen similar cases in the past, such as the AHTC lawsuit, where serious allegations were made in Parliament, leading to years of court proceedings, only for the Court of Appeal to largely clear the accused of wrongdoing. We are And we are not saying that Pritam Singh's case is the same as the AHTC, but then we observe a similar approach in the way how the matter has been handled by the ruling party. And more importantly, as we approach the next general election, voters have to reflect on what this case means to them. Not just in terms of legal outcomes from the case, but also in terms of how the issues are being framed, debated, and acted upon. At the heart of this, I think there's an issue that many Singaporeans struggle with, which is a sense of helplessness. Even if they were to feel that something is not right, they would often shrug and then say, "What can I do?" But as we have discussed in many of our episodes, the one moment where every Singaporeans have their voice is at the ballot box. Ultimately, elections is not just about who governs the country, but also what kind of governance the Singaporeans want to see. And that's the key takeaway from today's discussion. So that wraps up today's session. I would like to express a huge thank you to our panelists today. Dr. Tjin and Ishak Rajoo J for sharing their insights. If you would like to help us keep this discussion going, consider supporting us on Patreon. And if you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to this podcast. We have many more such similar discussion coming up, so do stay tuned for future episodes. So once again, I'm Terry Shi, and thank you for joining us here today on Political Speaking. See you next time. Goodbye.